Good evening, everyone. Good evening and welcome back. Welcome back to the PorscheCooled Podcast. It's a special one today. You would have seen it in the title. Steve's back.
I am back. Hi, mate. How you going?
Where have you been? Everyone's saying, where's Steve? Is he really on maternity leave or is something else going on? I said, no, he's really on maternity leave.
Yeah, I'm really on maternity leave. That is my reality. Had another baby girl, and yeah, it's cool, but it's full on.
I don't even know how you're getting the time to do this. For the listeners, actually, I'll just fill them in with the scene here. Was it last night? I can't remember. Last night I was watching the Formula One, I think. Yeah, I was watching the Formula One, and you sent me a message saying you do want to do the podcast on Tuesday at 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, yeah, that's fine. That's fine. When I saw it, I thought it's fine. And I thought, Tuesday at 9 o'clock, what day is that? And it's like, that's tomorrow night. I'm so confused. I don't know where in the hell I am. And I thought, okay, that's Monday night. So we're doing this on Monday night. It's 10:30 in London. It's, what is it? 8:30? 8:30 in the morning. Steve's got a break in between feeding and cleaning. And
I thought I was going to ditch one of the kids, but I didn't. My wife kindly said, in order to try to make it a bit earlier so it's not so late for you, that she would attempt to look after our first daughter. It could be a mistake and a half. It could be complete bedlam, but...
Well, everyone, Steve, and I probably told you some of this. I mean, despite what everyone thinks, Steve and I haven't really spoken that much since Emily was born.
Not
really,
much.
We've been on and off on messages, but not as much as we usually do because Steve's been really busy and I've been busy getting out of Bahrain and getting back to London, as everyone knows. I don't know if this sound is okay today. I can't hear myself. I'm sure it's okay.
Sounds good on this end.
Yep. So we've both been really busy. So we haven't really spoken much. We haven't really spoken about the podcast. I doubt Steve's even had time to listen to previous owners' stories. But I think you've listened to a couple of episodes, right? So I think we need a critique. I think we need your critique on Ajmal and his score.
Ajmal,
his score out of 10.
You motherfucker! It's really good. How's that?
People were saying to me that Steve has to be careful, Ajmal's, he's getting good. He's getting good.
Yeah, it's good. Ajmal, my seat is really moist and a bit smelly, but you can have it if you want it.
Yeah, I saw that response, that comment. Where did he leave that comment? He left that comment on Instagram. Know. You saw it, right? When I said
I don't even know if it was a private message or
no, it was
one to the world.
Private message? I can't remember.
I don't know. I have no idea.
But anyway, like I said, this has been a surprise one, this one. I haven't even told Ajmal yet. I will tell Ajmal. Ajmal won't just disappear. We might, like I said, we are going to do a 3-way, Steve. You're keen on that too, right? If we can work out the timing. It's just the timing which is a bit difficult at the moment. But we'll definitely do that.
We can hopefully figure it out.
Yeah, we'll figure it out and we'll talk. We'll get the three of us in one Zoom room, so to speak, and we'll chat. So, Steve, you know how I always like to start these podcasts. What else was I going to say? Oh, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, so there's been lots of good wishes for you, and I passed on some of them. And a lot of people are saying, you've joined the Two Daughters Club, and that was Ajmal. That was Greg, I think, at First Flat 6. And it was James at Porsche Platz as well. Oh. So they all know what you're going through. They're all in the same club.
Yeah, I'm a bit late to fatherhood for my age and everything, so I don't know. I have no idea what I'm doing.
Don't give it away, mate. Don't give it away. Cool. Don't give it away. People think you're 30. Don't give it away. All right. So what's been happening? I'll let you know what's been happening, Steve, because I know you haven't been listening to the owner stories. Like I said, this is my name's Michael Barth. I make podcasts. I'm not the only one that makes podcasts. I know who you are. I'm not the only one that makes podcasts, Steve. You know that, right? There's a lot of people entering the podcast space, which is exciting. It's exciting. That's what I think about it. So Steve is here. If you haven't been listening to any of the podcasts and you've only listened to the last 3 podcasts, you're going, where's Ajmal? Ajmal was filling in for Steve. Ajmal's a mate. He's in the UK, but Steve is the co-host of this podcast. and
I'm a guest.
Steve is the co-host. Steve is Zuckerman. I'm not Spike though. I'm not as good as Spike.
I wish I was Zuckerman.
Yeah, I wish I had their cars. I wish I had that Porsche collection. Every time they post a picture, it always looks so fantastic. Even Zuckerman's images, they look so fantastic. I want to talk about turbos actually with you, Steve.
Yeah,
I think there's a very interesting trend of turbos happening in the Porsche world. I don't know whether you saw that post today, but it's last night. It's very interesting. All right, so let's just start with the usual. Let's just start with keeping the podcast, keeping us talking about Porsche, chatting about Porsche, doing these podcasts live, so to speak. Well, Steve and I are live, but it's not live to you guys, but live, so to speak, is Patreon. There's no new members for Patreon this week. It's very upsetting. No one's joined Patreon. Patreon is the place to keep us talking. That's the place to do it. You just search PorscheCooled at Patreon, or it's Patreon/PorscheCooled. So go over there if you want to become a member and just help us basically. That's all it is, Steve.
Help me.
Help me.
That's actually what my eldest daughter says now. She just comes along and goes, help me.
Really? That's
like,
a great thing. Do you just laugh?
Yeah, it's like, what do I do?
Do you go no? You go no? No, Ava?
Yeah, I can do. But then she just cries, and then it's just my fault. Sorry, keep going.
Where was I? Owner story, Steve. I know you haven't listened to this week's one because I didn't send it to you. It's not out till tomorrow because it's Monday here and it comes out Tuesday. It's up on Patreon. That's one of the benefits of joining Patreon. You get to listen to the podcast 24 hours early. And this week I had John, and you know, I'm not going to say it in Norwegian. I'm just going to say it in English. He said I can say it in the English way, so it's John. John's a really good guy. John has got a car that you're going to love, Steve. I don't know whether you checked out. Is this the
yellow dude?
Yes, it is. John's got the 996.
You mentioned ages ago.
996.2 speed yellow GT3 Club Sport, and he just put the BBS wheels on it as well. He just went out and at Christmas time and just splurged on a brand new set of the BBS CH, whatever they're called. I can't think of the number now. You know, the classic
CHs?
Ones.
Yeah.
Yep. He's got those on his 996. It looks fantastic. You know, John asked me today through Facebook Messenger, which I'm not always quick to answer on because I never know it's there half the time, but he sent me a message just recently, actually, and said, how was it? And I said, well, it sounds really good. You know, there's always the test when I'm editing a podcast, and this happens with ours as well, Steve, is that if I'm laughing while I'm editing it, I'm laughing and I'm getting amused. Natasha is sitting across the room and watching me saying, well, are you okay? And I said,
what the hell are you doing? Yeah.
It's just funny. So it's a really good episode. It's live tomorrow. It will be live once you guys hear this. It was live on Tuesday. But it's a really good one. He's owned some good cars, Steve. He owned a Nissan 200. Oh, John, I'm probably going to get this wrong. 200 SX, I think it is. He's owned a GTR. Yep. The early ones. He
never had to go in one of those. I've always wanted to try it.
Yeah, R32. I think he had R32.
Yep, the original one.
Evo 6, Tommy Makinen, is it?
Tommy Makinen edition.
Makinen edition, which is like really rare. He had one of those.
Wow. Yep.
But he sold it. So, you know, he's building up, but he wanted something, you know, more analog. And the perfect choice was the 996.2 GT3, and he loves it.
So John's a driving god then?
I forgot about one, the M2. He had an M2, which he took to the track, which he actually like specced out with all the seats and, you know, everything and got it all perfect. And he took it to Nordschleife and he drove it around the track. He went there about 7 times in that car.
Oh, he's a driving god. I was looking at him. I don't know why. I just looked at the price of used M2s in Australia the other day. It was like about 70K will pick you up a good manual used M2.
I saw a high mileage one. It was 60 something, 66 or something, but it sold really, really quickly.
That's expensive for the mileage, against the mileage.
But, you know, a M2, I don't, you know, I was listening and I mentioned this when you were away. There was a podcast with Lieberman and Matt Farah. And they were talking about the M2 competition and the M2 competition CS and how everyone's raving about the CS, but how much more expensive it is, Steve. Like how much more it is. Yeah, like a lot, like 30,000 US or something. I think it is more than the standard. And I think Lieberman was saying the competition is just as good. You know what I mean? The competition is good. But he said even just the M2, the standard M2 is good. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Especially in manual.
Well, just because BMW have lost their way. Like that M3, M4 thing I still think is heinous. Like I know all the reviews say that it's actually not as bad as they were expecting kind of thing, and it doesn't have a dual clutch gearbox, blah, blah, blah. But it just still looks awful. I can't get over the way that it looks.
I think the front is ugly.
Yeah.
But obviously they got feedback from some kind of what do you do it when you get when you ask people, a group of
You do
people in a
groups.
room?
Yeah, you do groups.
Yeah, but they obviously got
research
feedback
groups.
from people saying it was okay, but I don't get it. I don't like it, and it's got a lot bigger as well. And I think this is isn't this the thing about the M2 that basically it's the same size as an E36 M3, an M2?
Yeah, it probably would be that, or maybe even a little bit bigger, I suspect.
I never thought much of them until,
Which one?
Don in Sydney, the M2. Don's got one,
the M2s,
right? My
yep.
friend Don in Sydney has got one, a black one. And I have to admit, in black, it's pretty tough looking. Like you see it in the black and the stance of it. When I met him at the cafe in Sydney and I stood next to it, I thought, this is pretty good. And then I went I got a lift in it somewhere. One day I was in it with him. And it feels, it's very spirited. It's very zippy.
Yeah, they're nice cars. My uncle had one. He sold it, black one as well. I preferred my 1M to the first gen M2, but I wouldn't be complaining if I had an M2.
Yeah, but when you think about the price of 1Ms, what are they saying now? It's like you should never have sold that car, Steve. You know that, don't you?
I wouldn't be married if I did.
The 1M though, people haven't lost money on it. In the States, it's going up in price, right?
No, you'd make money. You'd definitely make money on it.
But I'm starting to watch Hoovie's Garage. I don't know, I was talking about it last week, how he got that Beck,
I heard that.
The Beck one, the replica, which I think is pretty cool. I don't know what you think about those.
I actually hadn't heard of it. I'm not familiar.
You should watch that video, though, the one where he drives his Beck when he picks it up, the Spider, when it's actually been done.
Yep.
It's pretty good. But he did some episode with Shimmy 150, and he's around the back of his garage, and he said, I haven't announced that yet. And you know what he had?
What?
A 1M. He's bought a 1M as well in black. So, these people that kind of know that, you know what I mean? That buy cars that know they're going to appreciate, he's bought a 1M like now. So I'm guessing it's a high mileage one. Maybe he got it cheaper. But he hasn't had any videos on his channel about it. But I think the 1M is a good, you had it with your GT3, and I still think it's a great car to have with a Porsche. Even the M2, if you can pick up an M2, 2017 M2 manual, it's pretty good, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's just because maybe the reason why everyone's doing this too is because new cars are obviously getting so complete and cosseting and all of that sort of stuff. They're all converging, so they probably feel the same because they're all turbocharged as well. So like an M2 would still have tons of character. And I don't know, just even like, who was it? I think it was Chris Harris on Collecting Cars podcast.
Right. Well, he's got one,
I think he was talking about old E36s even, and I was saying this to my uncle on a text conversation, that apparently they're starting to kind of appreciate, and they were very 964-ish. They were sort of like the M3 that was no good and, really wasn't kind of rated at all. And then now all of a sudden people are starting to talk about E36 M3s. So.
Yeah, they got those unusual wheels, haven't they? The E36 M3. They got an unusual wheel. It's almost like a cookie cutter, isn't it? It's kind of weird.
Square.
Yeah.
There were two shapes. There was a 10-spoke and a 5-spoke. There's sort of split-spoke type things. But, like I've got a mate that bought one ages ago when I was in my 993. They're nice cars. They're fast and they sound good. But
did you see that pale lemon one that was for sale not long ago on car sales? There was a pale lemon one for sale. I think they wanted 66,000 for it, and it was which is reasonably low kilometers, and they wanted 66 grand. It was in pale lemon, but I tell you what, it was really cool. There was something about that color which really, really good.
Because I remember a time when they were about 30, low 30s. I bet you can't get one for low 30s anymore.
No,
that would have been 5-6 years ago, maybe.
There was a white one at Classic Throttle Shop. And then there was that lemon one, and they were about the same time. And I think they were around about close to the same price, price. Right. But I think the lemon one had less kilometers than the one at Classic Throttle Shop. But anyway, John's had a really good, he's had really good drivers' cars. Like I said, the GTR, cool. The Evo 6, the M2. And John contacted me because it was all that long time ago when I said we were number 2 in the charts in Norway, which were number 2 again the other day. Actually, I noticed we're number 2 or number 3 in Norway again.
Go John.
And he reached out to me and said, if you want someone from Norway. And it was great. It was really good to talk to. Really nice guy. So make sure you listen to that story if you haven't listened to it already, and give John a follow on his Instagram. His Instagram will be in the link of the podcast. Did you watch the F1, mate?
I watched the highlight reel.
Yeah, I watched it as well.
Actually, these days I never really watch the full race. I'll wake up, read who won, because in Sydney it's always pretty much kind of like early morning, and then I'd sort of hear the result and then just have a quick look at the highlights. Looked pretty cool.
Yeah, I tried not to see the result. I never look at Instagram before it's on, and I watched it last night here on Channel 4 and the highlights as well. It wasn't live. It was on at 8:30 last night. And I watched it. I watched the qualifying the day before. I think it was a good race. Yep. I think it was a surprise ending. I'm not sure if Red Bull will be happy with how the result was, but I think it's going to be a good season. Obviously, the cars are closer. Obviously, Red Bull is closer to Mercedes, so it is going to be interesting to see how it all works out in the end.
I only read a headline. What happened with Max? He was complaining that somebody didn't let him go. Was that the team that sort of held him back or something? Or
no, there's a corner where they're not supposed to go off the track. During qualifying,
I saw that bit.
They couldn't go off the track because if they went off the track, they get penalised. Apparently and they were saying this in qualifying, during the race, if they went all 4 wheels off the track, apparently during the race, it wouldn't be a penalty. So Lewis kept doing it, and then I think someone complained during the race, and then they said, they told Lewis by the radio not to do it, and Lewis said, but they said it was okay to do it during the race. So the rule was really hazy.
Oh, okay.
And then when Max passed Lewis, he went off 4 wheels off in that spot.
Yep.
So then Red Bull, Christian Horner got on the radio, and you only heard this after the race. On the highlights I watched, you didn't hear the radio broadcast until after the race, and Christian Horner said to give the place back.
Give the place back, yeah.
Yeah, so that's how he lost. I guess they thought they had to weigh up the amount of points they could possibly lose, or the time penalty that they would lose. Yeah. So maybe they just sort of said best just to come second instead of maybe coming third.
Just proves that there's a ton of politics in it. I mean, there always has been, like that kind of debacle about Ferrari obviously effectively kind of cheated for, however long with some sort of engine thing, fuel flow.
Yeah.
And they make a secret ruling, but they won't tell anyone else, exactly what's kind of going on. So the politics in F1 is huge.
I think the Aston Martins, the new Racing Point now they're Aston Martin Racing, whatever. I think their car looks pretty cool. The green of the car looks cool. I don't know what happened to Vettel. Yep. I mean, obviously Vettel didn't perform very well because Stroll did a lot better than him. Alonso did. It's going to be interesting. I mean, I like watching it. I mean, like I said, I actually could have, I don't know whether you heard this, Steve, I actually could have gone to the F1. Anyone that was vaccinated, and because they've already been vaccinated now, I could have actually gone to the F1 and watched it. They were only allowing people who had had both their vaccinations into the circuit. But I left.
I've been a few times to Melbourne because I worked on it, remember?
Yeah, I know. You went to it, yeah. I have never been to Melbourne either. We had tickets from the guy that ran I remember years ago, the guy that ran F1 in Melbourne.
Yeah, I remember.
Ron Walker. He was Tasha's client, and he gave us the tickets, and we didn't go. We gave them to Don, and Don said they were in like the proper stand, the Ferrari stand, or whatever it was, and they were really, really good seats. So I thought, damn. Well,
see, it's the same thing for me. I think I went to, basically we were shooting every time the event was on. I think I went to 2 or 3 events, but the thing is, I had access to like all the VIP areas and stuff, not the pits, but all the kind of corporate boxes. But when the race was on, we were literally filming, so I never really got to watch the race.
Right.
But
so did you hear the news that Porsche's thinking about joining the F1 if they can use their own fuel?
Yeah, I'd sort of heard some of that stuff.
As if the other teams are going to agree to that. Can we use our own fuel?
They might. It's just going to, because it's going to be branded, obviously, them, but it's not really,
I think it was Mobil. I think it was them and Mobil, wasn't it? Mobil, who were doing that fuel.
Siemens,
was it? Okay. I just want to do one shout out, Steve. We've had I always like to give the shout out for people who give us a review on the podcast because people have taken the time to push that star button and to write something. Lately, we've been getting a lot. We had one this week from Flintlock 007, Great Britain. I think his name is Neil because it's got Neil in the title because Apple reviews are really confusing when you go to write them. Always a great listen, highly recommended. Thanks for all the effort you put into the Porsche community. So thanks for that, Flintlock 007 from Great Britain. Thank you for the review. Thanks for taking the time to do that. Apple reviews. If you can go to Apple reviews when you're listening to the podcast. Firstly, please subscribe to the podcast or follow, as Apple calls it now. And at the same time, you just give us a little star rating. If you've got a little bit more time up your sleeve, then write a review. That would be fantastic. It just gets us seen in the search results. Like I said, the Porsche podcast arena, so to speak, is getting very congested, and it always, every review helps. So thank you for that. Hey, Steve, I was just looking. I've got my eye on a 912. I haven't sent it to you. I've sent it to like so many other people. I think I sent it to Nick in the UK, Nick who owns a 912, and I think I sent it to Ajmal. I've sent it to a few people. It's at European Collectibles. They've got 3 912s at the moment. They've got 2 white ones and the sand beige one, which they've had for a while, which I had the video for, which I sent to you, the one you said that sounded like a Volkswagen, that one.
Because it is, yeah.
So they have, the white one is 59,000, the one white one's 59, one's 68, and then the other one's still there, the sand beige one for 66. But I quite like the white one for 59 if it was like 55. I was told that I should.
So what's that landed in Australia?
It's pretty good. It's the price where I want it to be. It's about 90.
Okay, yep.
90, and then I add another 10 grand on for Autohouse to do their magic, so I'd say 100. So that was where I was sitting. That'd be number 100. Which I'm getting to the point here. Because I know people who are listening going, I heard that story last week, Michael. I don't want to hear it again. Well, there's a reason why I bring it up. 1, because Steve wasn't here last week. And 2, because Rint Vehicle Design in the UK, who is, I think they're near where Ajmal lives. I think Ajmal said they're quite close to his where he lives, his village.
Ajmal lives near everyone.
Yeah, he lives in a very affluent area, in the UK.
Oh, Ajmal's rich. Then why doesn't he wash his fucking car?
He is rich. Now,
why doesn't he get a servant to wash his car? What's wrong with him?
Look, like I said the other day, I'm really happy for his 2-year anniversary on that 996, but man, it makes me so sad to see the condition of that car. Like, I know it's the cheapest 996 in the UK, but like, it doesn't have to look like the cheapest 996 in the UK.
Good point.
Actually, John in Norway works for Maguire's. John, maybe
send him some tips.
Recommend to Ajmal some products that he should use to get that paintwork, get all the bird crap off his car. Yeah, and get it back to condition. Anyway, I'm getting off track. The 912 prices. So that's the 912 at European Collectibles. And I know European Collectibles are a bit more expensive, and I know 59,000 US sounds a lot for a 912, but it's quite sorted, Steve. Rint in the UK, that they do have one car at Rint, which I've been looking at for a while, which has just been sitting there for a while, which is £54,000, which is still more, right? It's got a wooden wheel and it's got the checkered seats. It's black and it's been resprayed and done, right? It's in black. Natasha likes the black. They keep hinting on their Instagram about this right-hand drive one that they have. Original right-hand drive 68. They've just put it on their website.
Original? I thought they didn't make them in right-hand drive.
No, they do. I didn't know that either.
Oh, okay.
Nick from the Classic series told me that he knows people in the UK that have a right-hand model when I was talking to him. I didn't realize either. Anyway, this is a 68, original right-hand drive, UK delivered. They've restored it, £125,000.
Whoa.
I know. So all of a sudden that 59,000 white one looks really, really cheap.
Yeah.
That's pounds as well.
Know.
That's pounds. I know you don't know. You know what you would like?
I don't have enough of appreciation for them because I still just kind of go, for whatever sort of money it is, it just seems like a lot. I think I've texted you this, like my cousin's husband, who now listens to the podcast, he discovered us.
What's his name?
Marco. He's probably listening.
Hi, Marco.
So he's probably, I think, kind of about to get a toe into the water. He's a mad VW classic VW kind of fan nut. So he works on his cars, he knows his way around and all of that sort of stuff. So he's owned numerous combis and Beetles and all of that.
I hope you listened to PJ's story, because PJ's was big into Volkswagens too. He's still owns them actually with his 356.
Get Marco on at some point if so look, I think he's kind of thinking about consolidating and then maybe kind of getting his ass into a 911 if my lovely cousin will let him. He's married to my cousin. Anyway, so and Marco's
is that your
my
uncle's
son-in-law.
daughter?
Yes. So car craziness is in the blood. So look, he's been asking lots of questions because he was pondering 911 ownership. And 912, I think, was on his radar too. So I think he was kind of familiar with the ones that you've been looking at in Australia.
Okay.
It just sounds dear. Sounds really dear to me, like for, like even if you call it 100, I don't know, what else can you kind of get for 100?
I think it's about 90, but then I add another 10 because, I don't know what the other costs that you'll need. In saying that, though, Steve, there is European collectibles, and I'm sure your cousin-in-law has seen this as well. They have the one that I really like on European collectibles, but it's out of my price range. They have a silver 911T. And on their YouTube channel, on European Collectibles YouTube channel, he drives it. And man, it's spirited. The way he drives that car, it sounds good. It's pretty fast. It seems pretty fast, even though it's just the T. And that's $114,000 US. Now, I worked out the price of that, landed in Australia, just so you guys know who are listening as well. It's around 200,000 Aussie dollars.
Which is mental.
For a 911T. But 911Ts in Australia sell for about 250,000 Australian dollars.
Yeah.
So even if you brought that one in, you're still below the price of what you would get one that's already sitting in Australia. And some of them being left-hand drive as well, not being right-hand drives.
Yep.
So maybe it's not that bad, And you notice the trend, I want to get onto the... what do I want to get onto? This trend with the prices that, you say about 912s, but it's not just 912s, it's across the board with everything, isn't it?
Yeah, it's everything.
Did you, and I don't know whether I sent this to you, Steve, I forget, and I mentioned, I think maybe last week with Ajmal, there's only 2 base Carreras for sale on car sales in Australia, right? 2 base manual Carreras, and one is 125,000 and the other's 120.
You're talking 997?
Same as mine.
Yeah. Yep.
Not an S, just a standard. One is 125,000 Australian dollars and the other one's 120,000 Australian dollars. 87,000 kilometres or 175,000 kilometres one has.
Yeah.
Now, what's going on?
Again, because my cousin-in-law has been sort of asking questions about, I think he's sort of shopping on a fairly tight budget. Well, see, it wouldn't be a tight budget if the world was normal, but all of a sudden, like, what can you kind of get for, not...
Nothing.
A huge amount of money. It's impossible now, which is...
Exactly.
I don't know. It's a little sad.
It is. It
said
is.
It before, you kind of lament the fact that, just good sort of true enthusiasts, like you kind of have to have a big wad of cash to kind of get into it these days. So...
Yeah, which is sad actually, because the people that really want, people who really want to get into the brand, what are you getting into? And then you're stuck now because 996s are on the rise. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Talking about regret, I still really regret. I regret not buying the 996 GT3 that time. I do.
Yep.
But I kind of really regret. Yeah, I know. The ones I had, there was like 3 or 4 to pick from, and they were $90,000. Which is ridiculous. But I guess I just didn't have the cash to free up to do it at the time.
Yeah, sure.
But I kind of regret the GT3. But then I think I really regret the turbos as well, like not picking up the turbo. I'm wondering, what do you think? Because it seems like everyone is buying turbos. It seems like the turbo all of a sudden has become really popular. Now, I don't know whether this is based upon the 993, Steve, because the 993 turbo prices are crazy, right?
They all are, though, aren't they?
But you saw that Ted Gushue, Type 7, he put a picture on his Instagram yesterday, and I'm sure a lot of people have seen it. And he bought it from a dealer, I think, in Switzerland or Italy or wherever he is at the moment. He's always somewhere traveling around. He bought a 996 turbo, seal grey, 996 turbo, X50 package. It looks like immaculate condition, really good, but he's bought the 996 turbo. God help 996 turbo prices now because, him being such a Porsche guy, I'm sure that everyone's sort of taking notice and,
There's
think
quite a few people, like even Larry Chen's got one, the sort of that highly regarded American car photographer.
And he commented on Ted
cool.
Gushue's post. They've got the same color, both in seal grey.
Yeah, right.
I don't know. The turbo, 996 turbo. So I looked on car sales very quickly after I saw that, just to see what was there. The one that your mate was looking for, the one he was going to buy in Melbourne, I think that's gone. I'm pretty sure it's gone. But there was one for sale where it had 80,000, and I didn't see this the day before because I was looking the day before as well. I looked again yesterday. Yep. It was 80-something thousand kilometers, and they wanted $99,000 for it. It's gone already. Manual, turbo.
That's cheap.
That's
from
cheap.
manual. That's
exactly.
cheap. Yeah, that is
because
actually
the others,
cheap.
Yeah, the others are 130, 160. I don't know. I mean, turbos seem to be quite popular. Is it going to be as sought after as a 993 though, Steve? Do you think it's going to be sought after as an air-cooled turbo? Because it's a Metzger engine. That's why I'm thinking.
So traditionally, like in my world, like old man world, like turbos were always very desirable. It's just that if you ever bought a brand new 911 turbo, whether it was maybe less so 993, but a 964, 997, that was the car that would depreciate the most. Like it was the most expensive, but it would you'd kind of lose your money pretty quickly on it. But they were always really desirable because like the 964 was the kind of bad boys car.
Yeah.
993 for whatever reason was always like considered one of the best looking, I guess, because of the wide body.
Yeah.
And the wheels and all of that sort of thing. And yeah, I don't know, like even TGE kind of bangs on about it all the time that he's got the latest 992 version, and he said that like they seem to hold their value.
They hold their value, yeah. You can own it, and he's very clever like that. I mean, he obviously bought it. He'll sell it, and he doesn't lose any money from it. And his brother had one too. Remember, he bought it and pretty much sold it the same price he bought it for. Yeah, they're very sought after, especially the Turbo S. Like I said, that one in Bahrain that was in the building that I lived in Bahrain, that wasn't an S, that was just a turbo. But every time, I saw it just before I left there. And I keep looking at it thinking there is something about that turbo, that shape, those rear arches. It's very cool. It's very cool. And the center lock wheels, which are not your favorite, I guess, but they're center lock wheels. But, Ted Gushue's bought a good one, though, because he hasn't just bought the turbo. He's bought the one with the X50 package, and we all know how rare the X50 package is. I know in the UK, I read an article ages ago, and it said that not many people ordered it in the UK because basically it was expensive. It was apparently a really expensive option, even though you got, I think you got another 30 horsepower or something, brake horsepower, didn't you?
Yeah.
I think it was 420 to 450. So a lot of people didn't think it was worth it. But now, they're getting very sought after, and they're the higher priced ones because of the fact that it's got that, EC tune, had a slightly different gearbox, and had more power. So he's got the X50 as well. And he bought it from a Porsche dealer. It's actually in a Porsche dealer.
I suppose the thing about, like, pretty much any turbo car, but particularly 911 turbos, is that you can just tune them and you'll kind of get a fair bit more power out of it. It's sort of like any old kind of Japanese sort of rally-inspired type thing as well. Like, they're built strong, so you can kind of dial it up quite a bit, and the car will still be reliable. It's just whether or not people literally kind of want to mod them or not is a different thing. But
yeah. Did you see also Magnus Walker bought a 991, your mate Magnus Walker, he bought a 991.1 Turbo S?
No.
He bought a high mileage 991.1 Turbo S a couple of weeks ago from, I can't think of the guy's name. He's on Instagram, American. He's a dealer, and he has quite a good Instagram. I can't remember his name. He bought it off him anyway. High mileage, though. I think it's got over 100,000 miles or something. Turbo S in silver. I think it's got a red interior. Be interesting to see what he thinks of that, having owned, all the air-cooled turbos and still owning 3 of them. I
suppose it just has a different purpose, doesn't it? Like I'm just trying to think about it. I don't think I've ever driven a 911 turbo. The closest thing I've driven is my uncle's 991.2, which has a turbo in it, but it's obviously just a standard, S.
But you were quite impressed with that, right? You were more impressed than what you thought you would be with that car.
Oh, yeah, of course. Like, same thing. Any 911 is cool. it sounded better than I thought that it would. That's the thing. Like you know that in sort of like if you were going to drive from here to Melbourne kind of thing, or do a long trip, or kind of do a daily commute. Like obviously a turbo is better because it's got more torque and it's a bit more luxurious, all that sort of stuff. Like I was listening to what you and Ajmal were talking about in your last episode about one car, one Porsche do it all.
I want to ask you about that actually. What your answer would be? That was coming up.
I'll answer it in a sec. But so like it obviously does have a different character and a different purpose. I would still opt for naturally aspirated over turbo if I kind of could. It's not to say that turbos aren't fun, but if you had the choice, I wouldn't kind of go down that path. But it's obviously kind of just quick as all hell.
But you wouldn't say to someone now, if you're looking for a 991, get the 0.1 generation. Would you say that the 0.2 is okay, or would you still say go with the 0.1, go with the naturally aspirated?
I don't know enough about it personally. But yeah, you're right. Like I was more impressed with my uncle's than I thought that I would be, because I thought that it would be just a little bit too kind of sterile in its character, but it wasn't. It was surprisingly sounded kind of cool and all of that. You can tell that it's got like a ton more grunt at low revs, but depending on how you like to drive, like for me, for example, I kind of go, yeah, it's cool, but what's nice about a naturally aspirated motor is that just for the fact that you have to rev the guts out of it, or you just drive in a lower gear, not great for fuel economy, but that's sort of what makes it a little bit more fun.
Yeah.
So like being able to drive kind of lazy style in a turbo is not necessarily my idea of fun, but
So back to your cousin's husband, Marco. Has he found anything that he likes? Has he narrowed it down to what generation he's looking?
So the interesting thing about it is that I don't know what his budget is, but I know he hasn't got like 200 grand to spend. He's been doing the right thing, which is looking at everything online. He's been chatting, like my uncle's owned many. He sort of asked me a couple of things. And then he's just gone on the journey. Like, the obvious starting point is 996, which is obviously not a bad car, blah, blah, blah. But I think he feels possibly that it might not be for him.
Right.
And it might be just the interior, I think. I don't know for a fact.
Okay.
I keep sort of saying, because I used to have a 993, that I actually think that with the water-cooled cars, whether it's a 996 or a 997, it's probably still... everybody's going to crave the driving experience, and I reckon you can dial it back into, a 996 or 997 by a couple of simple tweaks, as you know. So that was my kind of tip for him, which is if you can get over the looks, I'm pretty sure that you can make it more characterful and a little bit more sort of fun if you're happy to kind of play with it, not keep it, bog standard kind of thing.
That 996 turbo for under 100 grand, that was a really good one though. That would have been a good one for him. That's one you would just scoop up, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't even know if he's got that sort of money. So like he started there, and I know he went and looked at a 993, but he wound up having to look at a cab because there's not many cars on the market. And I think the interesting conundrum for him is, here's one for you as well, is
I think the cab is okay though. The cab's okay.
Well, I had not my favourite, but anyway, like.
But that black one for sale has been written off. There's one on car sales. It's actually it's been a repairable write-off. He doesn't put it in the description. It's in the notes from car sales and not in the description. It's actually a repairable write-off.
I'm not across them.
It's a black one. If he's looking at that, there's a manual black one which looks quite appealing, but it's actually it's actually had a full side impact and been repaired.
I don't think the one that he drove was actually kind of quite pricey, but. I was going to say the interesting conundrum when you go back to, like you got to start with a budget at some point in time. And if you have to make a compromise, if the compromise is choosing between a cab versus a tip, which compromise do you make?
Take the cab.
Yeah, same.
I'd take the cab. I don't have a problem with the cabriolet. As long as it's manual, I don't have a problem with it. And I think the 993 looks okay. I mean, the roof's a bit clunky, but if you get that thing like Nick Murray did with the cover that goes over the top to make it cleaner.
Tonneau.
Yeah, the that cover? I don't think that comes standard, does it? I mean, he bought one. He said he bought one off.
No, it should do.
All right, his must have been missing because I remember he said he bought one and he doesn't put the top up and he just put that on, and obviously it looks a lot cleaner. The problem with old Porsche Cabriolets, and this is what's so nice about the 991, isn't it, and the 992, is how clean they are. You know what I mean? The 991.1 and .2, how clean the top is, how it folds down.
Look,
the old ones, how it's always on display, and you see all that metal and stuff. It's pretty ugly.
It's not that, like, again, no 911 is a bad 911, but for me, like, being fussy, like, aesthetically, there's something about when the roof gets folded back, it makes the back part of the car look really bulky, because, like, when the roof is collapsed, whether it's a new one or an old one, it still kind of sits quite high over your shoulders, and that line doesn't look as good as, obviously, like a hardtop, but...
I think I like the 80s.
I guess the benefit...
The 80s Cabriolet, though. I think I like the 80s Cabriolet more than the 993 Cabriolet. Even though it still has that unfinished thing, I think there's something about with the whale tail and that top, it actually comes together better for me.
Yep.
But then again, it's very clunky.
I still feel I feel like that about Speedsters still. Like the 991 Speedster, the one that just got superseded, was the first that back end didn't look quite so bulky to my eyes. But and I'm talking pure aesthetics. Like I was about to say, like I'm sure one of the benefits though of driving a cab is that the sound would be even better. So
the sound will be pretty amazing, and that's all the people that have been on owner stories with the Cabriolet always make that point, that it really does sound amazing when you've got a Cabriolet, especially if you've got some special exhaust. It really does sound amazing. It is pretty special.
It's just I find having a roofless car like in Sydney, I reckon it's I found it too hot in summer. Like it's just you see lots of people kind of driving around basking in the sunshine, but it's just like, man, you must be cooking. It's so hot in summer.
This is the weird thing. There are a lot of people who own Boxsters in Bahrain. There's a lot of Boxsters on the road, new ones, all the new ones. And I'm thinking,
drive the roof down?
Well, you could during winter, because winter is, it's not super hot. It's like 21, 26 or whatever, but it's cool. The air's cool. But as soon as it gets into summer, there's no way you could drive that car with the top up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, I still worry about owning cars in the Middle East because I worry about how hard they are, how hard the sun is on the paintwork.
What you sort of said in the last
the discoloring, every car's headlights, any car that's 8 years old, the headlights are all like not clear anymore. The Perspex just discolors. It just, it's the sand and the heat.
Sandblasted.
I don't know. I saw a 911 the other day, a white 911, and it was like cream. Like it was the white one, but it wasn't white anymore. Like it was discolored and not evenly discolored, Steve. Just partly in parts. It was like more cream in other parts.
Okay.
I just want to talk about Autohouse Cars and Coffee. You couldn't get out to it. You couldn't go on Sunday.
In my idealistic kind of crazy mind, I sort of thought, maybe I might be able to sneak out because it was 7 o'clock in the morning. But no, like Ava was sick, and we're still just trying to find our feet with feeding. So, because my cousin-in-law and my uncle were going to head out just to go and have a little look, I'd sort of suggested. I think he was going to go anyway, but it's a pretty good way when you're in the market to kind of go and weigh up, which one that you might like. And if you kind of go, I think I even said to him, for example, if you might be considering, like broad strokes, a 996, go to the Cars and Coffee, because I bet you there's some really nice pampered ones out there. So then you kind of get a feel for what a really well looked after.
But you're like putting a kid in a candy shop. You go to that. It's good in that way, but it's also bad because you go, what if I can get one of those? And wasn't there? What is that 959 that was there? Steve, I just told the listeners. Steve sent me some images that his cousin-in-law took. Some great images, by the way, and it was a great. I think that's one of the first. Is that the first one they've had since COVID started? They haven't really.
Yes, it is. It is this year.
Yeah. So
even last year. Yeah, they cancelled all the ones last year.
I'm really looking forward to going to these. I have to say, I really, really want to go to them again. But what was that 959? Was there any history about who owned that car?
I don't know, but it's popped up on social a couple of times with Autohouse and then Atlas Bodyworks. They posted like a little video because I think they did the first time I saw it was on Autohouse's social media, because I think the car went in there for a service. And I obviously have no idea who owns it or anything about the actual car.
And it's a Sport as well, which is the better one, which is the one you want.
Which is rare and guides red.
So maybe someone's
then,
just brought it in, have they? Someone's just brought it in?
No idea. I think, I think it's probably the same in most cities, countries, or whatever. There's obviously some very enthusiastic, probably quite affluent people out there that have many cars, but they don't flaunt them. They get tucked away in warehouses and stuff, and you just don't see them much. So
yeah, and I think that's who I didn't mention. James also filled in for you for 1 week as well. You probably heard that episode. James at Porsche Platz, RSR Classic, James's business. He's buying and selling Porsches now. And I know I'm not going to mention the name, but a good client of his has a lot of Porsches, and he told me about it, and it sounds pretty amazing what this guy has.
I think I think I'm sort of anecdotally, I think, there's a lot of clientele at Auto House that would be exactly the kind of same. Like you're not talking 1 or 2 or 3 kind of 911s. You're talking about the ilka person that gets offered the 911R when it kind of gets released and stuff like that. So, or a 935 or whatever. Yeah,
I remember there was a 996 GT2 in there when I took my car in, and I was asking Rick, and he said, "Oh, that's a very good client of ours, a collector." And he said that GT2 only has 15,000 kilometers or something on it.
Yeah.
And it was wow. And then I think it appeared at Classic Throttle Shop. I think it was for sale. I think Auto House was selling it. And then I remember it turned up at Classic Throttle Shop. I don't know what happened to it, but it wasn't that expensive. They're a bit twitchy though, aren't they, the GT2s? They're not so easy to handle.
Apparently. But you can, I think apparently with the modern day tyres, they blamed a lot of it on the tyres and the alignment.
Yep. So the good news is, Steve, I got a email today. My sunroof leather cover is finished. Nick.
What country is it in?
Nick, who was on the First Owner Stories. Nick, my friend in London. Nick. He wanted to get his done. I said, please do not get yours done until he's finished mine, because I don't want any confusion again. So anyway, I asked him to send it to the London flat, so hopefully it's okay, but it's done. It's been 1 year. I looked at my emails. I actually started this process 1 year ago.
Yeah, wow.
So that's coming. And I'm pretty excited too. And the listeners might remember Steve was getting some number plate brackets made up. I know it's a very boring topic for most people, but these little details really make a big difference. And Steve was getting this guy in Queensland, was it? Or Tasmania? Queensland.
No, Tasmania.
Tasmania.
So, dude's name is Philip. Lovely guy. Philip runs a business called Laken Number Plates or something like that in Tassie. Look him up online. He is so meticulous, it's not funny. And I don't know why. I think you mentioned it ages ago when you first bought your car.
Yeah, I contacted him. And he responded to me. He said he wasn't doing them anymore, but that's all he said to me.
I've spoken to him many times, since first kind of ordering it. Look, to be honest, they're not cheap, but then, I guess he's kind of dealing with idiots like us who are willing to
Speak for yourself, mate.
Just go that extra little last bit where you kind of go, I really hate the plastic bit, or I wish my rear number plate was a little bit lower. And he basically builds you a custom bracket.
See, to everyone listening, this is because Steve always makes fun of me about my number plate, because it really bugs him that it sits too high. Doesn't it, Steve, when you're following me?
It does.
It bugs him.
Yeah. When I look at your photos and everything, it's like, man, it's so off center, it's not funny. So I think we have a fix for it, because so Philip sent me a parcel whenever it was last week. I only got around to kind of having a crack at just putting it on, and
looks good. The rear one looks great.
Front one's a bit dicier, but it's not Philip's fault. But we had a pretty good conversation in the last week, because my problem with it was that this is going to be really hard to explain. It's a visual thing, but I wanted to replace the horrible black plastic plinth on the front of the car.
Yeah.
He basically kind of prints and like 3D prints some plastic kind of spaces and then puts a backing plate behind it.
Right.
Catch to it was that he sent it to me, and to me it sort of was cleaner than the black plastic plinth that comes from the Porsche factory, but the problem with it is that it sticks out too far. Like you've got your bumper, then the thing, and then the plate. After I kind of installed Philip's thing, it still protruded way too far. So I kind of buzzed him and sort of said, oh, look, it's good, but any chance of kind of getting it closer? I've got something on the way, but I reckon it's only going to be like, 5 mil closer. If
This would be solved if the Australian government or New South Wales government would just allow magnetic plates or something, or stick-on plates.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it? You just have it especially for the front, or no plate for the front. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and look, the catch to this, like for anybody that is still listening to this, because they're kind of going, you're talking about number plate brackets, is that the plates on my car and Michael's are the discontinued, what are they, Prestige
plates? They're Perspex plates.
Yeah, so it's not like a metal thing, it's sort of like acrylic, and it comes in a box frame already.
Yeah.
So because of that, when you attach it to a car, particularly like a 911, which has a really curvy kind of front nose, the thing just sort of sticks out, and that's the problem with it. Even if we had like a standard kind of premium metal plate, you'd get it closer. But
It looks good. The rear one looks good. The front one, I'm not convinced. I'm still not convinced about the front one, but I didn't order the front one. You got me the back one, which was really kind of you, and I need to pay you for that. But the back one on yours as well looks so much better because you don't see those holes that you saw on yours, which used to bug me.
Yeah, the 2
you
plugs.
Can see it. Yeah, the 2 plugs. It looks terrible.
Yep.
So now it looks good.
Would annoy you when you're following it?
Yeah, it does. It used to annoy Tasha, actually. So let's talk about buying a GT3. If you go out and buy a GT3, there's a lot of people who listen to the podcast who are looking for GT3s, and I guess you should always get a PPI, right? You should really do get a PPI. But
yes, I think so.
Talk about your friend in his GT3. He had to get some work done on it, and this is the friend that you talked about before, who's had some work, and then he had to get more work done on his car.
Yeah, so my mate who bought a car, the identical car to me, really happy with it. So, no problems or whatever, but he took it off and had, he received the car, he's been driving around on it as you do, which is, smart, kind of getting to know it. Thought that he could pick up a few little things and wanted to get like a thorough service, which he kind of did. He took it to Andre at the Pit Exchange, who is very reputable. I know lots of people that have been there.
Right.
Got the car back and still felt like there were a few little kind of groans and niggles. And I'd sort of said to him, in my experience at least with GT3s, like they do that. Like they just make all the kind of weirdest noises in the world. It's not like a normal car. You sort of think that the thing's going to fall apart, but apparently when you start reading up and, you take it to Autohouse or whoever, like eventually they just kind of keep saying to you, like they kind of do that. Not that they all have the same creak and groan or whatever, but, they're stiff cars and they're just sort of built in a particular way and they just make noise. There's less sound deadening. Anyway, so my mate wasn't quite satisfied. Not that he was implying that somebody did a bad job. So he decided that he wanted to kind of still, chase the noises. So he sent it off to another independent, like a pretty reputable one here. Guys took the car and diagnosed it and came back with a punch list of like all this kind of other stuff.
It was pretty heavy, wasn't it? It was a lot of stuff, right?
Yeah, and we're not rubbishing the kind of shop because I have used them once before and I know of them. They're good. It's just
meticulous.
I just sort of thought the curious thing about it was like, so they kind of said to my mate that, oh look, they think maybe his front struts, his front suspension needed to be completely replaced.
Right.
Previously, like the previous shop didn't pick up on the same thing. Plus, a highly regarded suspension shop kind of had the car and sort of, did the whole kind of alignment and set it up again for him. Nobody kind of picked up the fact that
it's weird, isn't it?
Concurred with this opinion. Yeah.
So what about the Eastmans or whatever they're called? Did they pick it up?
Heasmans.
Did they pick it up?
Car hasn't been to Heasmans.
Oh, it hasn't. Okay.
No. So the conversation with that is like, wow, like one person sort of said to me it's all good. The other person sort of said, hey, the front struts need to be kind of completely replaced. Now, if you want to go non-cynical benefit of the doubt, I would sort of have a guess that I suspect that, again, it goes back to how picky you are and what your use of the car is. Like if you kind of go, yeah, look, you're putting the car on track, you're going to notice every sort of little kind of, nuance with it, blah, 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 then maybe the front struts do need to be replaced. But if you kind of go the other way, which is if it was somebody more like me who just sort of drives on the street enthusiastically, blah, blah, blah. But
Yeah.
still drive like grandma. I'm not going to notice the difference. I think maybe that's where the difference might be when you kind of get two different places telling you, different things.
But don't you think it kind of makes sense what this second shop said? And like Steve said, it's a reputable shop. But doesn't it kind of make sense because the car had a lot of heavy track work? So it kind of makes sense that it would be worn out, right? Because it had been heavily tracked.
Not heavily tracked. I don't know if... I don't think you could sort of say it was heavily tracked. It was just more that the previous owner was very honest and sort of said, yeah, you've done track days. Yeah, like I don't know, so what's the definition of regular kind of thing? Like,
So what's your mate going to do then? Like is he going to replace them or is he going to get them repaired?
No, so he's going to go back to the suspension place to get him to look at it again and just kind of, have another look at it. But see, the other next interesting thing, and it's interesting, maybe it's more interesting to me too, because my car's got more mileage on it, and I sort of thought, I reckon in another couple of years, maybe another 30, 40,000 K. So if I get to maybe about 120, 130, no doubt at some point somebody's going to say to me, or Autohouse is going to say to me, your suspension could do with a refresh. And then I'll be at that point where I kind of go, okay, so do you... I believe a 997.1 GT3 comes with Bilstein coilovers as standard from the factory. So then your choice is, well, then do you have them basically refreshed? You send them back to the factory. And in this instance in Sydney, that goes back to a place called Heisman's, who are the Bilstein distributors, where they pull it apart, replace the seals, refill them with oil and, respec them basically. Or do you go and replace them with a brand new Bilstein part, or do you then upgrade to Ohlins or KWs?
KWs, yeah. What do you do? It's not easy.
And that's where that's what I was asking my mate, because I was very curious to kind of go to see what he might kind of do. And look, it was just interesting that, again, the second shop that he took it to sort of said, replace it with the factory kind of Porsche part.
Okay.
Whereas the previous place sort of said, no, just have them serviced, take them to Heisman's and have them rebuilt. They're a good part.
It's a big difference in cost as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because it wouldn't be cheap to replace them.
I don't know what the difference in cost is. And, again, I was having a chat, but I think it's probably going to be at least half the price, isn't it?
Must be. I guess this is a bit like steering rack, isn't it? I'm thinking about the steering rack of mine because it's got a leak. And, this is what Autohouse said to me. I said, should I just buy a new one? They said, why would you buy a new one? Most of the time they just recondition it. And I've watched other videos on YouTube too, and it seems like it's a kind of regular thing that people just get their steering rack reconditioned. No one really replaces it because it's just seals and lubricant, right? That's all it is.
Yes.
Yeah.
So exactly the same conversation.
The seal basically just cracks. It just cracks with little wear, basically. Mine's probably got worse and worse, but little wear.
Maybe not.
So that kind of makes sense.
I don't know. Look, I'm enthusiastic. I'm non-mechanical. My mate was just picking my brains, and I just sort of, when he got the text sort of saying, hey, he literally said the front shocks are dead, they're shot.
Right.
I just sort of said to him, so you're going to get them reserviced? And he said, no, the guys suggested that he has them replaced. And it's like, oh, I thought you'd just get them serviced.
I guess this car he's bought, though, he got it at a reasonable price, right? It wasn't, I'm not going to say what the price was, but I remember the listed price. He got it at a reasonable price. He got there before anyone else bought it. He's happy with the car. And I was talking to someone, I was talking to someone yesterday, actually, who's coming up on an owner stories. Jeff, I'll say his name, Jeff. He's got a Boxster from San Diego, who's coming up next week on owner stories. And it's like his car, you're just doing things to get it, mechanically back to where you want it to be. You're going to keep the car. It's going to become your car. It's like it's a process. And you expect to do certain things anyway. So it doesn't really take away from the enjoyment of the car, does it, Steve? It doesn't take away from anything he's got in the car. Sure, it has to be done, but when you do it, it's so much going to be better. It should really be better. And that's the payoff.
You did right. So as an ownership experience, I kind of go and this is for my cousin Marco, who if he dives in, in the next couple of months or whatever, I'm sure it'll be the same. It's it doesn't mean that the car with the GT3 my mates bought or anybody, and same for me in the past, you buy a car and it's just part of the ownership thing where you kind of know, like if you're buying a used car, you know that you're going to sink some money into it. Now, my mate's probably sunk a decent amount of kind of money in it, but yes, his buying price was pretty reasonable. And at the end of the day, as long as you're really happy with the car and you're enjoying the experience, at least because the car's appreciating still, so you don't kind of go, it's dead money, like what you're kind of doing to it. Like it is, and it's a ton of cash.
Yeah, but it's still it's still a 12, 13, 14-year-old car as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's the other side.
To your point is like the car's new to you, you know, like you're kind of getting to know it. You sort of want that feeling that you've talked about a lot, which is it's a really good feeling when you know that you've taken it to somebody who you trust. They've checked it out. They've kind of set it up to the way that you like the car, and you know in your brain psychologically that, you know, it's on fresh pads or like fresh brake fluid, all that sort of stuff. So you feel really confident about it. You want it to basically be like that. That's going to cost you money. Yeah. Yes, that amount of money since you buy the car could be anywhere from, you know, $1 or $2 grand to like, you know, 20 grand.
But for us, though, Steve, to me, that's one of the best. That's one of the best feelings. You know, you've just taken your car to Auto House. It's had its service. The major things have been done. They put the things that need to be done. There's nothing really left to be done. And you drive it back. You know the drive back from Auto House. And you drive it back, and you're onto the freeway back over the Harbour Bridge and fly over it. And you just have that feeling in your head that it's like, this is just perfect now. You know what I mean? There is something really, there's such a great feeling about that when you know your car is sorted. You know what I mean? And that's why I don't feel comfortable at the moment, you know, with all the other crap going on. I feel on edge because I know my car's not sorted. I know the steering rack has to be done. I know the brakes probably have to be done. And I think I might just do the brakes regardless, even though the indicator hasn't come on.
Look, it's psychological, and like it's probably just because people more like you and I, which are less mechanical, because we don't kind of get our hands dirty and know exactly kind of what we're doing, like you are relying and trusting somebody else. Yeah. Whereas there are people that are more mechanical, more hands-on, possibly more frugal as well, and they can get that feeling by kind of working on the car themselves or asking the right questions and stuff. I don't blindly kind of throw money at Auto House, but I do sort of, you know, trust that. I think, and this is the thing also like about using an independent mechanic like my mate, he's obviously got to build a rapport with whoever he wants to use, and I don't think he's kind of got that understanding yet, whereas I know if I take my car to Grant and the guys at Auto House, they know what I drive like, they know how I drive, they know what I'm like, they kind of can judge whether or not, you know, it's worth me spending, you know, X number of grand on something, or whether that's no, we just reckon you can wait, you know, like another year or whatever. And that's the right place to be.
Yeah, and that's what I like about them as well. It's
that
exactly
confidence.
It's exactly what they said to me. You know, when I wanted to change the battery over, and Grant said, Why do it now? You know, it's still working. Why do it? Just wait till it's completely gone. Even though it's not exactly the right battery, it should be in there. He said, why bother? Same as the brakes. You know, I said, they're almost worn out. I should change them now. This was like a year and a half ago. And he said, but there's no indicator. They'll still work. Don't change them yet. Yeah. So, you know, that side of it, they're good.
You're talking money.
Yeah, I know, but Audi would never do that. I remember going to Audi dealers and they would just, you know, your pads need changing. Dealerships are terrible. Just change it over now.
Yeah, a dealership full stop would never treat you like that. They'll always just kind of go, oh, you need to kind of do that? Like, we have to replace the whole thing. And by the way, you can't buy that individual bit. You have to buy the whole, you know, module kind of thing, plus the labor rates 100 times higher.
Yeah, it was annoying. It was annoying. I hated it. Yeah. Hey, before we go, what happened to what happened to Cindy's Macan, to the turbo? Did you crash it?
I scraped it in the hospital car park.
Okay. Did you tell Cindy, or you just kept it from her and just got it fixed?
No. Well, we were in... Baby was born, we were in the hospital, we're both dead tired because...
You're blinded by love.
Without going through all the war stories. No. My first daughter got sick and had gastro, so the night before new baby was born, we didn't really sleep because... so like we wound up basically kind of being in a not great sort of spot. Baby came, we were obviously really tired, and then I was the idiot that sort of jumped in the car to kind of go home to get some clothes or whatever. And I just backed the car, I rubbed it up against the column in the car park.
So it took the paint off, or it didn't take the paint off?
Yeah, just took a little bit of paint off the wheel arch, passenger side. No dents or anything like that. So I got a referral from Auto House as to what's because I moved. When you move, it's pretty hard to kind of keep finding the right person in the right area. Auto House referred me to a dude, Aaron at Colortech, who was a nice bloke.
So it had to be painted?
Yep, mobile paint guy.
So how do they blend it in?
Yeah, he just does a blend.
Really?
As you just said, he blends.
So why would you use... Okay, here's a question for you. Why do you use a mobile guy and not take it to, say, Atlas or take it to, someone like that?
Depends where it is. So, if it's on the bumper, it's on a flat part of the car where you potentially can blend it, particularly on a bumper as well, where you're going to be, marginally less kind of fussy about the paint work. So it's on the Macan. It was just over the wheel arch, which is part of the plastic kind of bumper. It was on the flat part of it, so it could be done. And I know my sort of shit well enough to kind of know that that's easily a mobile job. Plus, it's cheaper.
And it looks good?
Look, it's not perfect. If you run your hands all over the car and all that sort of stuff, it's not absolutely perfect, but this is a bumper bar that's still going to take nicks and scratches and stuff.
So here's the question. You know the question I'm going to ask you now.
No. Oh, your car.
Can he fix my bumper? Does that sound like something he could do? Because it sounds a lot cheaper. I like the cost. You think he could do mine?
No, not to your standards. I think the problem with your car is that there's a little tear in the plastic and there's an indentation with it. So I think you're going to need to go to a body shop to kind of do yours.
Oh, that's unfortunate. Okay, I better start saving my money.
I don't reckon your repair will be that kind of massive.
I thought you said it was going to be $2,000. You told me that's massive.
Is it massive?
That's pretty massive. $2,000.
So look, a paintless guy, I hadn't used one in a little while, but back in the day, I sort of remembered a dentless paint guy.
Yeah, you had that French guy.
Probably be, it would be sort of like about $120 for a visit.
Yeah.
To fix the Macan cost me less than $500, but between $400 and $500. So that's still not cheap anymore.
That French guy you had that you introduced me to, that was like, and he looked at my Audi with where the person hit the broomstick into the bonnet all those years ago. Yeah. That was about 10 years ago.
Yeah. Getting old, mate.
It's 120.
Look at us.
Now it's 500. That sounds about right. I thought that was cheap. Anyway, you got it fixed. That's the main thing. That's good.
Yeah, I got it fixed. So yeah.
All right, mate. You had enough. You got to go. You got stuff to do. Babies have been very good. I can't hear any noise in the background. I think I heard Ava before. That was it. Was that Ava or was that Emily?
No, that's Ava.
Yeah, I could hear Ava before.
No. That's obviously a 19-month-year-old.
All right, mate. I'm sure everyone listening are going, Steve's back. They're glad to hear you. They're glad that you're back. They're glad everything's okay.
No, they're all going, what the fuck? Just get Ajmal back on. We know he doesn't wash his car, but, he's more entertaining.
No, Ajmal, we have to say a big shout out to Ajmal, actually, because he's been fantastic. We're going to do more things with Ajmal as well. And, you should go and check out
Ajmal back in there.
I should say you should go and check out Ajmal. I always like to give Ajmal a shout out because you should go and look at his YouTube channel. The drives that Ajmal does, the milk runs, the drives, he's the original. There will be imitators who are trying to do what Ajmal does, but he's the original and he does it really well. Driving for milk and driving and talking and rambling and ranting. There's no one better.
He's a bus driver, right? Flat cap bus driver?
I know, every time you do the search, it always comes up first, that one.
I've never searched. I just hear you guys talking about it.
I always search it and it just keeps coming up. Flat bus driver or whatever. It's funny. Or people that sell flat caps. Especially now in the UK, you do a search of people who sell flat caps. It's like, okay. All right, mate. Have a good one. Have a good day.
Yeah, you too.
We'll talk again soon.
Sorry for keeping you up late.
No, it's all right. It's 25 to 12. I'm normally up very late. As I said to Steve before we started, I'm usually okay. I usually stay up to 1 a.m, pottering around. But I haven't flown in such a long time. I get jet lag from Bahrain. I don't know how I can get jet lag from Bahrain after all the flights to Sydney that I'm normally okay with. But I was
It's been a while.
My wife and I have been a bit knocked around. Tash and I have been a bit knocked around, so we've been sleeping a bit more than usual. I've also been starving. I've been eating so much food. I don't know what's wrong with me. I swear there's something wrong with me.
Just eat, mate.
Just eat?
You're wasting away.
Yeah. All right, mate. Talk again soon.
Cool. Cheers, man.
Thanks for doing this again. It's good. It's good to have you back. It's good to have you back. All right, everyone. That was Steve coming in from Sydney. And that's it for today. That's it for now. Thanks for listening, and bye for now.